evening. We will call the school board meeting of September 12th to order. Sarah, would you please call the roll?
Hallett. Here. McKeon.
Here.
Haas.
Here.
Romansky. Here. Swanson.
Good evening.
Tucker. Here. And Bowerman.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We're going to kick things off with some good news. I think we've got some folks we're going to have introduced to us. Talk to us a little bit. Ray, you want to bring your team up? I said that, and you look like a surprise. Like, did you go back and off?
No, I know, I'm fine. I don't know where you want me to stand.
Oh, come on. Have a seat.
If I might, Ray's going to will help introduce and tee up both Sean and Gospel, and then I think Jim and Julie are going to come up and give you kind of a preview of how things have been and which direction they're going as a team. So kind of put them all into one good news item. So yeah, Julie and Jim, come on up.
The floor is yours.
All right, Dr. Thompson, Chair Bauman, and the board. I'm Ray Benton.
Nobody does that. Take notes at the back there.
I'm the equity supervisor here in the district. I'd like to introduce two of our new members. To my right, I have Gospel Corda, who is at East Junior High. And as you know, we're now E12, and he's also at Eagle Creek Elementary School. To my left, I have Sean McMore, who is housed at West Junior High, and also works with Jackson and Sweeney Elementary. Okay, so very happy to have these two.
So if you don't mind, Gospel and Sean, can you both just tell us a little bit about how you got here and a little bit about your background, and then we want to welcome you that way, and then as a team we'll kind of welcome everybody as well. Gospel, do you mind?
Yeah. I started off kind of in education teaching younger ones, pre-K, and then I decided to move on, and then I went on to be a dean of students at Dukes Academy. I realized my role as a dean there was more, kind of reacting to things, and I wanted to work towards being more preventative. And I wanted to switch my focus a little bit. I started doing some equity stuff there, but I wanted my position to be solely equity work. I saw the posting, decided to give it a shot. I ended up here at the interview with Dr. Thompson, Ray, and many others that were with my interview, and they liked what they saw, I guess, as I'm sitting down here.
It was his lack of confidence.
But things ever since then has been, I guess I just received a different level of confidence boost as I'm working with not only teachers but administrators and my students as well, and things have been great thus far. So it's been a pleasure to be part of the team. It's been a pleasure to be here in the district. It's a really, really growing district. So the work is forever there, but at this point I'm well and ready for it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
One thing I think I've said to the group in the past, but the school you worked with before was primarily a Somali focused school, right?
Yeah. So.
Sean?
Yeah, Sean, nice to meet everybody. A little bit about me. I grew up around education my whole life. My grandfather was a big education guy. He was a not superintendent, but an athletic director, principal, AD, coach, teacher. He did the whole thing, so he kind of started the foundation for me to want to be in education. And my mom also, she's a long-time administrator in the St. Paul School District. My dad worked for the U of M, so I've always been around education my whole life, and I knew it was just a natural career move for me. And just a little bit to go back in high school, when I first met Mr. Benton, and it still feels funny calling him Ray, to be honest. He's always been Coach D or Mr. Benton, so I'm still grasping that one, going first name basis type of thing. But I've known him for a while, and our relationship grew, and I always stayed in contact with him all the way up until now. And I was playing football, and then I ended up playing professionally for 2 years, on and off of practice squad type of stuff, and I just decided to hang up the cleats and wanted to get into education. So I started working for my alma mater at Washburn High School, Minneapolis Washburn High School. Was there for a couple of years. Then I moved on to an intervention specialist at Harding High School in St. Paul. Was there for 4 years. It's pretty much like a dean of students. They just don't call them deans in St. Paul. They're called specialists. And did that for about 4 years. I was also coaching at McAllister College doing football. And so I was doing those two things out in St. Paul. And Coach Better, Mr. Benton, reached out to me, just let me kind of know about the opportunity, and just said that, you know, there's a job opportunity that I might be interested in. He kind of knew what I was doing out in St. Paul, and just said, you know, give it a chance and just apply. Maybe we can bring you on board. I came in, had an interview with Dr. Thompson and everybody, and it went well. I was a little nervous, to be honest, because I wasn't used to 10, 12 people looking at me shooting all these questions. You know? I couldn't feel like I could keep my sense of humor without, you know, dropping the job. So I was in there super, you know, straightforward, and everything went well, and I was able to come on board. I'm excited to be here. It's been a great school year, to be honest, and I love the work that I'm doing. I love all the students that I'm working with. Great staff. All the administrators are supportive, and there's no place I'd rather be, and I really mean that. Like, this is great to be here, and be able to just support our students here out in Shakopee, and also the faculty and the staff. It's great. I would say it's second to none. I've been in 3 districts now, and I would say by far I love this one the best, just because the camaraderie, and it's more of a team effort with everybody. So I'm glad to be here. Oh, I also coach football too with Mr. Benton, so I'm on the sideline too. So that was a little tough game.
But to ease that, I coach soccer and I'm undefeated.
Guess who's not getting a raise next year?
Sorry, Ray.
Put up that
That's good.
All right.
Okay, I'll turn over to you, Ray, but I have Julie and Jim involved. As you guys remember, way back when we were dividing up and we were talking about directors, supervisors, I knew I had some time I could give to the team. And both Julie, from the cabinet standpoint, is delegated to help rep me. I'm there when I can be there, but Julie is a cabinet level delegate to the group, and then Jim from an administrative group adds his lens. Ray, as the supervisor, of course, is in charge of the whole thing. But we wanted to make sure that when this program started, it was entirely about building hopes and dreams. And it was parents and connections only at the high school. So in order for us to do it well and right, I've had to turn over the reins to these guys and say, kind of, let's not only do the hopes and dreams, but now let's get in and get down dirty with baseline data, and then let's build that E12 model. And teachers are hollering for this equity stuff. I met with Nancy's IC team, the instructional coaches, this past week, and I got to tell you, they were all about Gospel and Sean, you two guys coming in and helping at other levels. And that's the kind of thing we're hearing is more, not, more and more. But it's, how do we get more of Ray? How do we get more of time? So one of the things I've asked them to do is build the baseline, and then talk to us a bit about, in a good news way, what are we doing, and what will the board expect to see a year from now? What are our hopes and dreams? So Ray, you want to take it from there?
Yes. So the purpose of our equity team, number one, is to meet the students' needs. Second, we want to build staff capacity so that our staff can work with kids from many different backgrounds. And then next, we want to engage the community. And some things we've done just this year, we've done a couple barbecues, back to school barbecues, done one at Hunter's Ridge, and just last week at Buena Vista, right across the street here. And about over 200 people at that. Yeah, it was awesome, great experience. Just one quick story, talking about building staff capacity. So I was invited by the social studies department, Mr. Stone. I believe it's the lead chair for the social studies department, and he asked when I introduced the team to all of his sophomores, right? It's over 400 kids. and then talk about maybe some current issues, current events, social issues. What's our job descriptions, anything. And so I took that a chance to, I mean, this may get, and I told the kids, this may get a little uncomfortable, but I want you to know that you're in a safe environment, right? And even though when the bell rings, this is not a closed conversation. This is always open. So if you get a little squirmy in your seat after this discussion, come find me. You know where you can find me, and I'm introduced the team. And so, for example, I told the kids we talked about the Kaepernick deal. We talked about the shootings in Louisiana. And, but I know we got on a time limit, so I won't go all the way. I'll just give you one quick. I asked the kids, I said, why do you think we did a back-to-school barbecue at Hunter's Ridge? And the kid raised his hand. And I couldn't hear him. A bunch of kids started laughing. I said, no, this is safe. Just say it. What'd you say? And he said, you did it there because it's ghetto. And I said, oh, okay. I said, all right. And I said, what does ghetto mean to you? You know? And so he said, okay. He said, I don't mean to offend you, but ghetto is black. It's okay. I said, now remember, you guys, what I just said. This is a safe environment. This is why we got to have these discussions right here. So without going into everything that I talked about, at the end, when I got done with everything else, right, the class was dismissed to leave. He comes up to me and he said, I want to really thank you for that because I don't look at that anymore. I don't look at blacks as ghetto anymore. He goes, I can't even believe I even put that word out there like that. And I said, oh, don't worry about it. I said, that's what we're here to inform. And the next day, I'm at lunch. And he comes up to me again and he goes, you got some time to talk? I said, yeah, sure. And he just goes, I can't get out of my head. I get that whole conversation. I mean, all the issues that we talked about. He said he can't get out of his head, you know, and how he actually thought like this for so long. So I was like, hey, you know, and so we've had conversations, him and I, but it's a process. It is a process, and he wasn't the only one that we got this from, but that was the one I thought just had a big impact. And a couple of my equity members that were there were able to see that and see him talk, and just to change in a 45-minute class time. So that's what I have. And then with that, I know I got to move on. Some of the success measures that we look at to improve on each year, some of the growth that we're trying to have Jim talk about those issues if he could.
Absolutely. So Dr. Thompson talks a little bit about hopes and dreams, and Ray talks a little bit about process. And we're going to talk about those two things along with some data. And we want to point out that we do have strategic directions, which are on the vision cards. We'll be taking a look at the data, and we'll be back year after year to continue to have this conversation. Just some early indicators of success. As Ray mentioned, we've had 2 community barbecues with more to come. Both have been very well attended. Going into the community and giving people the opportunity to interact with staff has been fantastic, and I would have to say that staff turnout has been unbelievable. Just teachers and so many people who work at the school donating their time and coming out and meeting families in their backyard, which is just great. We're also active in the Diversity Alliance. We're attending the FISH meetings, trying to get more out in the community so that we can commingle services as possible. And coming up later on this month, we'll have our first advisory council where we're trying to bring in members of the community, all of our different ethnic communities in town, to serve as an advisory to the Excellence with Equity team and Dr. Thompson. We'll be having the first meeting here at the district office on, I think, the 20th? And we'll be taking information from that to further guide the work of the team and hope to continue to meet the needs of our kids.
And Jim, if I might, one of the most difficult things we're finding is to make that alignment between industry council, steering committees, school board, and other, trying to find places where our diversity can sit at the table or feel comfortable at the table. And so this advisory group that they're working with us on, we're hoping to get the voices together and eventually work them into our system. We see that real clear absence right now. And so that's kind of a side note, but that's also a part of where, when I talk to the group, we're going to push, come on, join us and try and get you at the table.
Start to a safe place for them to see where they can be involved.
Yeah.
Another win last year was we saw a 18% drop in suspensions at the high school, headlined by a 40% drop amongst our African American students. That would be a testimony to not only work with students, but work with staff, work with administration, trying to find alternatives and see what we can do to support all of our kids and keep them in school and in class. One of our measures is advanced course participation. That would be AP, honors, etc. We have over 100 more African American students currently registered and over 70 Hispanic students registered than we did 2 to 3 years ago. So that would be in part because of Abbott and also in part because of just the day-to-day interactions that our equity team has with the students. Moving on, taking a look at ACT, the big change with ACT last year was it was required that all students in Minnesota take it. It used to be, 60 to 70% of our students would take it. The 30 to 40% that didn't have post-secondary aspirations didn't. With everyone being required to take it, we saw drops across the state in the average ACT score. I think the good news within that would be, one, we closed an opportunity gap because all of our minority students took the test, and we did see by having all of them take it, we did have additional students who met the college and career readiness benchmarks. So within that baseline year, we did find some wins. Our MCA scores at the high school level, 10th and 11th grade, stayed steady in reading and math. The achievement gap regrettably stayed steady, but that would be something that we will continue to focus on. And one of our biggest measures long-term is going to be on track to graduate. And at the 9th grade level last year, we had over 90% of students from East and West leaving for 10th grade on track. Now, if you look at the research, everyone would say that 9th grade is the indicator. The students who leave 9th grade on track will graduate. The students who are not on track by the end of 9th grade tend to fall by the wayside. That number is up over 10% in the last 3 years. And last year was another significant gain, I would say in large part because of the work of EWE. We don't have the official graduation numbers yet from the state for this year. Those come back sometime in December, and we'll be happy to share those with you when we get them. So, Dr. Thompson calls it a baseline year, but I would say within the data, there's a lot of positives already, and you can see that the team has already had an impact on what's going on in our schools.
I'm going to share a little bit with you about how all of this aligns with everything that we're already doing, so that equity really just fits into every part of our district and the work we've already done and the work we will continue to do. Some of what we look at, you can see over on the left-hand side, which are the beliefs and practices, which came right out of our secondary design and the group that worked on that. And they had 4 initiatives within that group, 2 of which I really feel line up with what we're doing with our Excellence with Equity team. You can see on the other side of the slide, and I apologize for how small it is, we can send this out to you guys as well. We just recently put together what our 3-year goals are for this team moving forward. In 4 categories, being students, professional development, parent and community engagement, and then our site-based work. Really with the students, they're going to continue doing what they're doing and it's already successful. They're going to continue having contact with their caseload groups. They will discuss their hopes and dreams. We'll do college visits. Now that we're in the E through 12, they're also into the elementary schools and they're able to connect with those kids as well. Professional development, we also have put together a 3-year PD plan for staff and administrators that is actually just coming together as we speak. We had one of our conference calls this morning and we'll have a lot more information to share with you guys on that soon as well. But what it will look like is really kind of the Steve Dunn model. I know you're familiar with that. Meaning we are going to be training trainers, but also having the coaching model. So we have somebody come in and really work with our administrative team, our Excellence with Equity team, our ICs, and then our cabinet group, and make sure that we are the solid foundation that goes out and gets all of this done so we're able to support the staff to build their capacity and then have coaches within their buildings. Continuing it on with the parent and the community engagement, continuing with the barbecues. I know we're hoping to get a couple more in this year. Other community events, whether they continue to be barbecues in the next few years or we come up with other ways to get out into the community. I can't even speak to
Community choir.
Oh yeah, we are working on that one for you. The kids that came up and just talked about how excited they were to see you're here, you're at my house. I mean, it was just an amazing feeling to get out and see those kids and to see the families and interact with them. So to continue to get out and do that. We already talked a little bit about the advisory committee that we're putting together. And then, of course, participation in the Diversity Alliance, which we will continue to get out And then that site-based work, really for the teachers and getting our equity team involved in BLTs, in the I-teams, which is our intervention program, which we try and problem solve for kids and see what we might be able to do for some of those kids that are struggling. And then just the building site-based equity teams in each school would be coming up in the next couple of years. We put that in year 3 because we do feel that each school would benefit from having that team on site that we have. Only 7 of them are, well, how many are there now? There's 7 with 6, well, with Chris and DG.
Yeah.
But anyway, 6 people for the whole district. We need more capacity within our buildings in order to really do the work that we're looking to do. And so all of those, as you can see, line up with our initiative of embracing the community, removing the barriers. We've talked about how we have more kids coming into those higher level classes, and then developing that plan to move toward a culture of excellence with equity in our district. So looking at some of our next steps, a lot of it we've already talked about, but we have expanded E12 this year. Fully implementing Avid would be another next. Yeah, how do you like that?
Anybody wants me to caption up there the bubble?
What you guys can't see, which is really unfortunate, is that adorable little boy, if he would turn around and peed himself all the way down his pants.
Get excited, I get excited.
Was he telling you how to grill?
You had the little kid, right?
Yeah, I did. That was only minutes before the whole grill bottom dropped out on Rod's feet. Yeah.
That was Rod's hula.
Well, no, that was the kid. That's his safety bubble. No. But anyway, I digress quite easily. Fully implementing Avid from grades 7 through 12. The formal community engagement, building our staff capacity, and of course, everything that we do will be driven by the data that we're able to collect, so we can see where we're being successful and where we still need to grow a little bit. With that, does anybody have any questions for us?
I have a question. The whole formal engagement and the whole barbecue thing, how do you just show up and throw a grill, or how does anybody know that you're gonna do this, and do they go, why, what?
You know, I think we'll let
How does that whole thing?
Gospel and Sean speak to that, because I will brag a little bit about the two of them. They knew that it was something we've been wanting to do for years. We threw the idea out there to them, and within a couple of weeks, Gospel had the first one set and Sean the second one. So go ahead, guys.
Well, I guess what I did, I talked to Jim, principal at East, and I said, where are most of our kids coming from? And we dug a little deeper, we found out where they're coming from, and I said, hey, let's hold a barbecue at this site. Although that site had a lot of kind of, people being a little uncomfortable with going there, but I said, this is where our kids live, this is where they come from, so that's where we're gonna go. And so I drove down and met with the building manager and just talked to her a little bit. Got her more involved than anything. She stayed the entire time, just helping clean up, serving food, and it was just great. And just got them involved. And once I got the green light to go ahead, then informed the rest of the team and teachers, staff, administrators, just everybody, letting them know you're invited to this. Show up. The kids will love it. The families will love it. And that was the first one. It was so great to see the kids see their teachers, in their backyard, like Julie alluded to earlier. But just to have something like that is just kind of open the door for that community engagement, that relationship to build, or to restore that relationship if there wasn't, any relationship at all. But it just kind of led to the next one that Sean held, and he can tell you how that kind of played out as well.
Yeah, then I just followed up Gospel's barbecue, and then I reached out to Lori, the principal over at West, and just asked her kind of where would she like the barbecue to be held, and she gave me the Buena Vista Terrace spot. So I went over there, talked to the property manager, and she was more than happy to do it, and which was exciting. And after that, once I got the green light from her, I just started spreading the word, putting up flyers all around the school. Also told the administrators over at Sweeney to let them know, because we're kind of right in the same direction. And also at the Takata Learning Center, went there, posting up flyers, talked to them, and also just went out to the community and like some of the surrounding, apartment complexes, and just talked to the property managers there, because I know that with our big group came from Buena Vista Terrace, but I knew they were also surrounding here, so I thought I might as well hit those places too. So that's something that helped the turnout too, to go to 250 plus. But
Did you send emails to families?
yeah, and I was gonna
Okay.
say, yeah, Lori was sending out emails and like newsletters. We were getting it out that way.
Mhm.
The liaisons, we were putting into a Spanish flyer too, so they felt welcome to come. And also, we were sending out sending stuff home with the students. With at Sweeney, it's like the red folders, and that they take home, and we just put a barbecue fire in there.
Oh, yeah, I'll do well.
So that's the way we pretty much got the word out, and it kind of spread itself. And then I was getting emails and calls from other teachers from different schools, and I was like, yeah, you're more than welcome to come. You know, it was just a focus on like West and Sweeney, but anybody is more than welcome to attend. So yeah, it was a great turnout. It was just kind of more word of mouth and just going out to the community and just kind of extending our hand out and just inviting them to come over and just, you know, enjoy some free food, bring some you know, stuff that you like, water, desserts, whatever, you know. And it really turned out well, because it really did give not only the students but parents too a different look outside of the educators and administrators outside of the school setting, and see that, you know, they're human too. You know, they'll eat a hot dog too. Right? But believe it or not, that was a big thing. They're like, oh, Lori, I didn't know you ate a hot dog. And you're like, yeah, like, I don't eat hot dogs. You know? So I think it was good just for the students and also the parents to see that, you know, we're human too, and we're not always disciplined or have, I wouldn't say bad intentions for their kid, but you know, that we really do want to connect with families and really want to be able to bridge that gap between the school and the community, and I felt the barbecue helped do that.
Did you have as much staff turnout as?
Yeah, no, it was a lot of, all the administrators from Sweeney,
Can we come?
You
Oh,
can.
yeah.
I would come to the next one.
yeah.
I do
We'll
too.
send an email to you guys next
Okay.
time too.
I'll flip them
And
over.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna start sending out emails. I kind of caught some heat a little bit for not. I forgot to tell the big man, Dr. Thompson, until late, and then, you know, then I felt real bad about that. So yeah, the next one we'll definitely invite everybody. You know.
We've learned something that we will do differently.
Yeah. Oh,
So the
sure.
first one for sure. So there's actually a whole list of things that we know we'll either do differently, or we can pass on to the next group so they'll know what to do. Cool.
I will say that-
I assume, Sean, what you're talking about is when, like, if I don't, when we're doing, it's communication. When the group has got good things going, we all wanna know about it.
Right.
So oftentimes, if I don't know, they won't know,
Right.
and then they can't be a part of it too.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we were upset that you were having an event.
Yeah.
I would've
No,
clarified.
no,
No, yeah,
How about
no.
that?
My bad communication. But I don't.
No, I think it was just, it's that, getting that calendar set, which now, by the way, they have an Excellence with Equity calendar too, of all of the different things. So it's not only the barbecues, but it's the pre-holiday talent show or whatever Ray's gonna put together there and all that, so it's gonna be on.
Solo.
But I was gonna say, you know, in regards to just reaching out, I did find out after talking to, you know, quite some few businesses, that they were more than happy to be involved, and they just needed a way to get involved. I remember calling up Target, Kohl's. They're more than happy and willing to give out gift cards. Kohl's wants to send some of their employees there to work the event and then pay us after the event. Also, we talked to Lowe's about the grill. We have 2 brand new grills now. So they want to, you know, help us in our efforts in reaching the community. We just need to be able to communicate that to, you know, all the stakeholders in the community.
And one more thing, I thought that was good, we talked about building staff capacity. Talked to 2 teachers, I won't give their names, but I said, have you ever been to this area before? I said, no. And I said, does it give you a little more perspective about where this kid's coming from as far as with, you know, with homework assignments and everything? You know, yeah, you know what I mean? This helps, you know, because now I actually see where they live and where they're coming from and what's around them, you know? And I mean, and so even though you've been in Shakopee and even you're in the building, sometimes it's good to just go home and go to their area and just see what's really going on there. So it's good.
Well, this is outstanding.
That's good news.
Yeah.
That's the definition of good news. I think we will move on.
Sorry, Verlander, the check from us.
I'm gonna make a request, two things on behalf of the board. First one is, the slide you showed, I'd like to see
Yep.
that, couldn't read
I'll
it.
just send you the
So
whole
that,
thing.
but also
Actually-
this calendar you're talking about,
Yeah.
I want that sent to the board, because
Okay.
now we know
You-
when these events are, and I'm
We'll
assuming
give
we can
you
attend.
access
Oh,
to the
yeah,
calendar.
without a doubt,
Okay.
without a doubt.
Get access to
Brian's
the
sharing it
calendar.
right now.
And what we can do are all of the, do you want the slide presentation, or I can send you the actual document, then you'll be able to see it better.
Both would be
Probably
good.
the latter for sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Welcome.
guys.
You're welcome. Yes.
Ray, we
Great
told the
job.
new guys they have to stay for the whole meeting.
Oh, is that?
There you go.
All right.
That's your thing.
Professional sportsman was afraid to talk to you guys today.
All right, we're gonna move on.
Thank you, guys.
Are there any visitors here tonight who would care to speak to the board? Seeing none, we will move on to consideration of the agenda. Do you have any additions to the agenda? Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, second.
Second.
Thank you. Any dialogue or questions on that? All those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Move on to consent. Any changes or anything with consent?
No changes.
Okay, anyone? All right, I'll second the motion to accept consent as is. Thank you, Angela. Second. Thank you, Mary. Any discussion on consent? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Rod, would you like to go in order, or is there anything you want to?
The only thing is, we went out of order on six
Yeah.
point one.
Yes, we did.
We jumped right into that because.
Oh, that was the
Julie-
part, okay.
Yeah.
Great. I can put a line to that.
Otherwise, no, I think there's, I know we're all waiting for Dave's presentation on 6.2. That's the next one up.
Excited.
That's the keynote. We're gonna put that at the very end.
Oh, I saw the precedent now that 10 minutes means 30.
Oh, no.
Where does 30 mean?
You've got to go -20 to that.
That's right.
I can do that.
You want to come on up, Dave?
Sure. I don't have a team, just me.
I know.
You are a team.
You're so good, you know, I'm here for you, Dave.
Okay.
Okay.
Proud of Nancy.
No, it's like that.
So primarily what I'm here for, I kind of have three things. And the first one is really a follow-up on what I sent out regarding our results from last spring. And so you all had that, you got more detail than what I'm going to show here. This is kind of what I'm going to go through actually really quickly. It's just kind of to get your head back around maybe what you looked at already. Okay, so not as much detail as what you've seen already. But I'm just going to talk about some proficiency trends here, a little bit on achievement gap. It's a little bit connected to what these guys just talked about. And then I want to put on your radar this ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, just because that's going to be out there now with the No Child Left Behind and the waiver expiring as of August 1st. And then just a brief update of the fall testing. Okay? So here we go. This you've seen, and this was in the packet that I sent you before. And again, this is showing Shakopee is the red, the state is the blue, and then the green is our difference from the state.
BD.
Say again.
Delta?
The Delta?
Delta.
Yes, very good.
The delta, I think, yes, the change. Okay.
Have it in.
I'll try to work delta in here. And what I've talked about every year is, and if you look at the last 5 years, it was up every year. That's just, it's not reality, it's nice. But what we really want to see is a trend that's positive, and sometimes within that, you're going to see things bounce around a little bit. We're looking at this year, we went down, the state went down, we're still above the state like we talked about, and the trend line is still positive. We want to, again, now we're real curious about what happens next year as well, okay? This is 1 year's data, so there's math, and then that's just by grade. So I take a quick look at the green, the delta, the above, and see that we're above in all. We internally at our data retreat in our buildings look more closely at what those results mean for them, but here we look at a district level. So I'm going to show you the same thing for reading. Okay, so again, you see it's up there, it's plateaued a little bit in that 6 range, and we're ready to move on to the next plateau, hopefully, but the trend is still positive. And here's still that same grade level piece. That's 1 year's data, okay? And I'm gonna jump right into science here and just keep it rolling. Science, that trend is still not the way we want it, but if you just looked at the last year to this one, it was up slightly from 1.1 over to 2 over, still not where we want it. And in our pipeline, we have starting this year that physics for all 9th graders. So in the next few years, we hope to see, and Nancy, my teammate, has mentioned numerous times that in districts she's been in, that when they've made that change, it takes a couple of years to finish the process, but we should see that number go the other direction.
But the 5-year trend is positive.
No.
Yes, red, look at the red lines.
Our
Over
scores
5 years, and our
Oh,
scores
I see what you're saying.
are trending up year over year over
The
year.
delta
Yeah.
may not be
The
positive.
delta's
Right.
not as fast.
Right. We're
Different
still
from the
improving our
scale.
scores, folks.
Yes, true. Yep, okay, and there's the grade level piece.
You can let the state be successful. It's okay.
All right. Here is something that I don't think was in your packet that I've shown before, and I don't want you to get caught up in the numbers here. What I do want you to understand is, and I only want to focus on the right side of this. This is 4 years worth of our white student group's achievement. This is our Asian student group achievement. This is Asian minus white. That's the gap, that little bit. So forget the numbers for a minute. What I'm showing is this is the gap for our Black students in reading. This is the gap for our Hispanic students. So it's below the line. It's not where we want it, right? So what I'll show you, and you probably can pick up on one thing that's kind of exciting for us in there, I think, is if you look at the white rate, it's up over 4 years. If you look at the Black student rate, it's up quite a bit over 4 years. And then if you look at the gap, it's down. So this is like the perfect way
Yeah.
to close the achievement gap.
Yeah.
They're both going up, and one's steeper than the other.
Yeah.
Okay, and you can see a similar thing with the Hispanic gap, not as dramatic. And then you can see flat, and it's sometimes hard to get a pattern with the Native American because it's such a small group.
Yeah, they're so
Yeah.
small.
Do you know ballpark, the N is?
Less than 50
I was
who
gonna-
actually test.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this shows if you took year 1 versus year 4, how many more kids would be proficient. And so all I would do, like for the Black student group, it's 17 points higher. I just take 0.17 times the number of kids that tested, and that's how many more students. And so overall, this is about 300 more kids who would be proficient that wouldn't have been if we had maintained our rate from year 1 in this, okay? This is a similar graph for math, and we'll go through and see there. That one's kind of flat for our white student group, actually down 2 points. Our Black student group is up 5 points from year 1 to year 4, and so then you see the 5 and 2. There's your 7 points again. So you have the same idea. Much more dramatic in reading than what you see in math, but there's something positive to pull out of that one. Okay. This I did share with you before, and it's since the start of the MCA 3 for reading. This is what just our comparison group, how much they have changed over those 4 years. And it shows you that growth is not a gimme. It's not automatic. And so over 4 years, Edina, we started higher than we did, given. They're 2 points lower than they were when the MCA 3 reading started. And we're nearly 6 points higher than we were. And in math, this is since the start of the MCA 3 math, which is 6 years ago, and you get the same idea. Okay?
I think one of the things you've helped me remember is that we cannot assume that every year we're going to continue to grow at a pace that we have. Although when you look at the levels of proficiency with that growth, it helps us maintain a positive outlook, because when we're taking some of these small steps, there's gonna come a point where the rubber hits the road, and it did a couple times.
Yep.
On these scores, but we have to keep the big picture in mind. This is a 10-year plan. You know, it's not that sprint to the finish line where, you know, Nancy's group's not gonna change the physics and in 1 year, boom, there it is. It's literally, this has turned out to be a 10-year commitment, and I think we'll see that proficiency growth turn into that 10% above the state, which is what we're looking for in all areas.
And that is what's in the vision card as well, as that 10% number. The next few items are just informational for you guys that you might come across to you. This week, and actually some of you might have gotten this, and I don't expect you to consume the details here. There's new reports from MDE. You got it today,
Yep.
probably, Matt? Okay. That they now, instead of a one-page.
My daughter got it.
Kids.
Okay, yeah, this is just kids, sorry. This is the MCA report produced by Minnesota Department of Education that's new. The cool thing is it's very visual, and so they get, if you wanted to just stop in the upper left corner with the gauge, where's your kid, you could, but there's much more. It's 3 pages long. I'm not gonna take you through all of it now, other than to say it's new. We have some resource that goes out with it to help parents read with the reports and online. But I'll fly you through this just so you can get an idea. There's another page that talks about, the strands within each of the tests and how a student performed at a slightly more detailed level than just the overall score. And then there's a third page, which is probably the most challenging for people. The state tried to align MCA scores to a nationally known college entrance exam, which we're assuming is the ACT, and they created another scale score, which adds to the confusion. And the proficiency in being college and career ready are not always the same thing. So there's some work to be done on this. I think the visual nature of it is very good. I think it's a positive step, but it's a ton of information to consume. You might not hear word one about it other than if you get one of these reports, but you could, okay? Next informational item, No Child Left Behind. Minnesota got a waiver in 2012 from No Child Left Behind. On August 1st of this year, the waiver expired, and the Every Student Succeeds Act was in place. I'm going to show you just one slide that gives you some of what's in it. It's actually, there's a lot more, but I'll keep it high level, and you'll get more information going forward. But this is just to kind of put it on your radar, okay? I talked about the top thing. It replaces No Child Left Behind waiver since 2012. Essentially ends MMR, so MMR is no more. The implementation of this will be rolling, and actually the new measurement system is going to be in place in the spring of 16-17. Some of the things that are the same, MCA testing will still happen where it's happening now. There is some flexibility to maybe move a test to 9th grade, but that's to be determined. All EL students still test K-12. We still measure achievement, growth, and graduation rates. EL proficiency, English language kids proficiency, was a standalone system. It now gets rolled into this. Not sure what that's going to look like yet. And then they'll still identify schools that are the lowest performing for targeted support. What's new, instead of just the student groups you're used to, there will be 3 new student groups in addition: homeless students, foster kids, and children of active military is going to be another group. There's going to be a new measure, which is going to be interesting. It's called a measure of school quality. Every school in the state will be measured on the same school quality measure, which is to be defined. It could be any one of those things I mentioned up there. Student engagement, maybe through a survey, college and career readiness, maybe through what you saw on that MCA report, maybe through ACT benchmarks, access to advanced courses, and there's a whole list of other possibilities. And then there's changes in reporting as well, and what will be on the school report card. So there's really, what I've learned is there's 2 pieces. There's the accountability piece. There's also the reporting piece, which sometimes are perfectly aligned and sometimes they're not. This is just an FYI note, because you'll probably hear more about this as well. And then the last thing I wanted to share is, and then the state of Minnesota's plan has to go to the federal government in early 2017. We started our fall testing, and this is what it looked like last fall. We were in all Windows labs, and they were tied up for the first 4 to 6 weeks of the year just for testing across our buildings. This is what is our platforms for testing this year because of some of the investment that you have made. And what that has meant is there's different apps, there's different back-end requirements, and there's different training that the teachers all need to run on this. But it's actually been, Brian and his team have done a great job supporting us through, when you have one platform, that's challenging with the numbers we have, but now we have 4 different platforms that we can run on, and it's actually been quite smooth. And what it will allow is great flexibility for our teachers, that instead of us saying, this day, this hour, this is where you go, that they'll have control for what happens in their classroom, when it fits, when they want to pause, when their kids, if they're not in a state of being ready, that now's not the time I'm going to do it. And actually, it's been quite good. There are some things it's pointed out for us in terms of infrastructure where some little tweaks need to be made and better training that we might do with teachers, but for the most part, we're getting thumbs up across the board on that. And I'd say Brian and team are a big part of that. And that would be it. That's all I have for you guys, unless questions.
Questions for Dave? Dave would make the same request. I know personally, I like to have some of the data so I can refer to it on my own. If you can just send some of the stuff you sent me, I know before, but what you shared tonight, can you just send that to the board?
Yeah.
I have it. Didn't you already send it?
You know what slide you didn't get? You didn't get the one I showed you with the gap data.
Right.
I didn't have those in there.
Right.
But I'll get
Just,
you that.
well, we didn't have the stuff on ESSA,
Okay,
which is
correct.
Oh,
new.
right,
So just
right.
take the presentation and send it to
I'll
us.
do that.
Right.
If you wanted to keep your feet up, that's it.
Right.
All right?
Thank you very much.
All right?
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
All right, we'll move on to item 6 through construction update, which I guess is John and Mike. John, Pat, and
I can,
Mike.
Mike, you can chime in if you have something to add here. Not a lot that's changed since our last update. More so at Vaughn, you were there at the game on the grand opening ceremony on Friday night. I got a few slides here that we're gonna go through. You can see the entrance there, which I think the overwhelming comment. I was there Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And it was kind of interesting to see because we were going down to the wire, and even at the end there we had pieces that weren't completed. That we're working on that. We're going to be wrapping that up in these next 2 weeks. Actually, I was at a meeting today where just if we're talking about Vaughn, we got the fence that should get completed this week. We've got the track striping. Those guys are they kind of go around the country, and whenever things are in the queue to a track is done, they have a team that paints them. They're coming this Thursdays. The plan, we should have irrigation going in this week and hopefully sod by next week, and the final lift on the parking lot and striping is going to happen this week as well. So by the next home football game, it should look complete. I'm sure we'll have some punch list stuff and things that we learned, but just like we had to tweak the sound. I had the experience of going to the restroom once the lights once it got dark, and it was very dark in the restrooms or in the porta potties. So some things that we've learned. So we'll continue to get better. Just a couple other pictures here. You can see the plaza there, and again, you can see all the things that were coming together, and just people were really impressed with the look. I think the spaciousness of the plaza and all that. Just a lot of nice pieces. I think people. There was a lot of pride. I was sensing that from people that were there. I was sensing that from kids that were there. Like an hour before the game even started, to try and get in. They were waiting to get into the event. So it was a real good feel. You can see the field itself. Just it's very impressive. I think somebody said they talked to people from Wayzata that were there. I don't know if it was Ray and John.
They tweeted as well.
made some comments about,
Why is that it in? What'd they say?
I can find exactly what it said, something like, thanks for posting us on your amazing new complex.
so just, it was, you know, for all things that, you know, the piece that we gotta finish up, it'll be even that much more when we invite our friends from Prior Lake over here in a week and a half, so.
You know, John, just before we go to high school, I think that, you know, I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but I do want to say that I'm really disappointed in the lack of attention that people pay to timelines. When we're looking at a substantial completion of August 15th, and we're sitting still 2 to 3 weeks from being completed, and we may not be completed till October, there's something wrong with that process. And I realize that we're looking at inside baseball knows that the punch list is substantial. There's a lot of work to be done. If you're just a fan walking up, you're gonna say, wow, that's beautiful. There's a lot of things that have to happen though to complete that, to get a sign off. Not worried about a stadium. What I'm worried about is when we open up a high school, I have to be able to trust that this entire system is gonna be like clockwork. And I'm hoping there's either substantial penalties built in or something that will help us keep better on track. Someone fell asleep at the wheel on this project. Somebody here did. And I think that's gonna be part of tracking it as well, because when we get to the high school project, we can't say, well, you know, freshmen, you can't come over in the fall because we missed a timeline or we missed a deadline or whatever. Now, I have expressed that to ICS, who are our owners reps, and I know you and ICS have talked to the contractors, and it's somewhat apples to oranges because we're not dealing with the same company, but I think if we're just being transparent and honest, if people are taking the opportunity to say, wow, this is a fantastic project, it is. Are we happy with the way that we presented and had to scramble? No, we weren't, because there's no reason we had to be. And that's how I think that's why rumors and gossip get going. And quite frankly, we've done a great job, I believe, of communicating along the way, but I don't know that we've given the community the inside baseball look at this thing and to know how many turning parts there are on these projects. And so my challenge and my request is as we move forward, these construction updates at a board level are critically important. The stuff on the website is critically important. But then I'm going to ask ICS to ramp it up, and I'm going to ask the general contractors to ramp it up and provide us with proactive communication so we're not on the back end sitting a week before it's supposed to open and then be in panic mode. And we almost were. If it wasn't for good weather, there would have, let's put it this way, it would have looked substantially different than those pictures up there. Never in jeopardy of not playing a game, I get that. But I think that there was a lot of stress and pressure on you. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on the board administration to wonder whether or not, are we gonna have to pray for no rain, are we gonna have, you know, and so it's just my 2 cents and my hope and my requirement with ICS is we will not be in a position where we wonder if anything's going to open at the high school. It's got to be clockwork for us. And the bonus there, of course, is that rain will not be a factor in 2 years. And once you seal up the project, then they're working on the inside. But that's my hope. That's my hope with the project.
Sounds good. And we have started those conversations, as you mentioned, and we'll continue them, and we learn things along the way.
Yeah.
And I think we've learned some of the time that may have been delayed on the front end that caused you to scramble on the back end, and not a comfortable feeling. So. Duly noted. Getting back to looking at the like I said, the pieces that are completed, the functional pieces of it, were in place. A lot of the cosmetics and a lot of the other things that should have been done were not. And for all the wow factor that we got, we could have got an even bigger wow factor with all those things being done. The high school early site package, and this is we've been on this conversation as well too, because it would have been nice to have some of the parking issues that we had. We've got everything in that early site package of the parking lot open now, but we had 2 weeks of school where we had some gonna have to make some plan Bs with rerouting parking and all that as well. What you're seeing here is the final drop-off loop, which is open now, which will be the drop-off loop for, well, the school, well, it'll be the drop-off loop even when the school is done. So that parking lot on the east side of the building is pretty much what it'll be when the building is complete. That space you see in between there in the parking lot is where the building will be built out to. So what you're seeing a lot of around the building right now is just getting that site ready for the construction. I've only got about 3 pictures here. This is the west side of the building, which is closed off now. Where you used to go in for athletics and all that. If you go back there, I think people, one of the comments that I've heard is, wow, I didn't realize the scope of this building, the pushing out the earth that's being moved all the way out to, I don't know what's on the west side of the street there, but people were like, really, that field house in the parking lot's gonna come right out to the street there? Yes, yes it is. And that's the athletic entrance right there, on that picture on the left. So that was taken off. They're readying the outside of the building so that they can start building start doing the foundation, start butting things up to the building. And they're starting on that west side of the gym expansion of the field house, and then on the south side of the classroom section.
John, I think to your point too, John takes me around to the projects once a week for sure anyway, and the last time we were together, that scope, it helps us remember we're still as a board having to make some decisions on what's going on that property from a standpoint of green space, because we've known we've known all along that we can't possibly put everything we want on that site. So that's why that 78, 79 too, we have to make some decisions on what goes on current property, high school property, and then what goes out, 78, 79. And when you drive it, the other thing that I think if community wants to take a look, requirements such as parking, the scope of that's a little, I don't know, it's hard to see on parking, but take a look at the requirements for the ponding. That's a very large amount of space, and when I say large, I mean semis driving.
We still have semis driving in and out of that on a daily basis. It's like an open pit mine over there, I kind of joke.
It kind of is, and that's where we're kind of, from that scope of the reality of the project, we have to remember that some of the things too, and it's not an excuse by any means, but we expected certain, permits don't always happen in a timely fashion either, and again, that's not a blame game, that's just how things roll. And when you see the size, I mean, there are lakes smaller than that pond out there. That's a substantial project, and I believe it's more than the high school's project, isn't it, John?
Yeah, that pond is sized for that whole area, that subdivision to the south and all that, so it's a regional stormwater pond, and yes, it is more than that we would need just for the site. And, as large as that is, those large rains that we did, a couple of large rains that, that 5 inches in 2 hours in August there, that pond was fairly full, so, that's why they require you to put those things in, so. But a couple more, that's something, that must have been the last one there. But yeah, the pond, the parking lot, the additional parking lot, the 109 stalls, that is up and striped and ready to go now, so I know some kids will be hearing some good news this week, that they'll probably be opening up a few more, probably about 50 at least parking spots at the high school for kids that are on the waiting list and all of that. We wanted to make sure that we had everything in and we had everything done, and we made sure we were looking at, 1 o'clock is about our time we have the most cars in the building, so we've been out there counting and looking at all that, so that everybody has a permit, has a spot to park, and then we can open up some more. So, and this actually, what we should be telling people is this is as limited as the parking will be. Next year, when we open up that west side of the building with the new gym, the new field house, there'll be more additional parking going in as well. So really right now is as tight as it's been, and it'll continue to get better as we go along here. Now, it doesn't mean that we won't have, sometimes have to send out communication because we have to reroute some things and do some things, but that east parking is what it is, and hopefully we'll be gaining here next summer, more parking on the west. So other things that we've got going on, let's see. Yeah, the south side, we're at the study session, the next board study session, we're going to talk about the south side. I know that every once in a while people like to get the rumors, they're wondering, why haven't we done anything on the south side? Well, we're waiting till next spring probably to start moving dirt on the south side. We're gonna have a discussion at our next board study session on what that is gonna look like and talk about some of our options there as well. So those things are still in, we've got a 2-year build cycle here and things are getting staged. So not everything is happening just like that. It's being staged out. So if people have questions, we can definitely get them that information and answer any questions that they have. So.
And John or Reggie with Bach or Sean or
Scott.
yeah, Scott. I'm not aware of any discussion of us not doing anything at all with 78 or
Not at all.
79, and that seemed to be a circulating rumor. So can we put that one to bed? That the intent is that that's our intramural space, and one of the things that we've been public with is the efforts to try to work with 78, 79 as a potential entertainment center. And last week we had got some news that it didn't look like that was going to happen. So now part of the process is when you have one piece maybe fall through or a disappointment, then we look to make the best of what we do have. But I kind of felt like we should probably put that rumor to bed that there's no discussion about not doing something with the site.
None whatsoever. The Bach has talked about it. I think you've got it queued up for the 26th.
Yep. Yeah.
For a discussion with the broader board about what we're doing. It's not a question of if and when, it's a question of what, in terms of scope. But now that we know that, and I'm blanking on their name, from Ohio.
Cedar Fair.
Sandusky, yeah,
Yeah.
the Cedar Fair folks. Just say that this doesn't align with their traditional model in a sense that removes uncertainty.
Right.
That we were kind of, in fact, we were saying it was John's mission to go back to you, because you've been talking to them, saying, we need to know if these people are gonna be at the table or not. If they're not, okay, we're disappointed, but we understand, now we can move ahead
Yep.
without that uncertainty hanging over us. So no, there's no question. 78, 79 is gonna happen. We're gonna bring to the board, I'm actually gonna miss it, but we'll bring to the board what the current thinking is, get the board aligned to that, and then timing wise, that's always been not moving until next year in terms of moving dirt.
And that piece that isn't happening is not something that we were planning anyways. That was an enhancement that we thought
Absolutely.
we were gonna explore to see if we could get. We still have
That
a
was
plan
bells
that we
and
were,
whistles.
we were still doing the plan we always said we were going to.
Absolutely.
Always said we were gonna do. So.
Nothing has changed. In fact, that would be my kind of closing point, if I can, just to move us along, was that my takeaway from this and for the public purposes, from a referendum perspective, the plan is still a plan. We're moving towards a plan. We're on plan. Yeah, we have a hiccup every now and again.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, we can't control the rain, especially when it deals with outside stuff, but we are on plan and moving ahead and everything's looking good. And that is what we will commit to deliver against. So thank you, John.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I kind of shut that down. Does anybody else have any questions for John?
I was wondering if I could bring up just one concern
Sure.
about Bond Field. Of course, it was a learning opportunity.
Yep.
But the one concern that I had was the handicap seating area. When you think about where those benches are located, they're way too far back. And there's only one way in and one way out. So everybody goes in front. And a wheelchair person would go all the way to the back of the first bleacher, which means then your person is sitting back here and you're not sitting together to have that conversation. So I'm wondering, could you move those benches forward so people walk behind them?
I'm sure we can.
And if there's even possible signage, there wasn't any, and there was a guy in a wheelchair whose son was playing and couldn't see because everybody was standing by him. So I was just thinking if those got pushed a little bit and then maybe 1 to 2 wheelchairs between each bench, that would probably solve the problem.
And I'll echo that because I had a similar conversation, so it's not just Angela saying it, but those are the things we learned in the process, and that was the spirit in which it was shared with me anyway, was, hey, here's something you might think about and room for improvement, but we expect that. Anyone else? Great, thanks, Jason, for bringing that up. All right, so move on, actually, John, you want to
Yeah,
just
I'll keep
keep
it
the
rolling
floor
here.
yeah.
So
The policies,
Yep.
899.
Next item I have here is the marching through policies, and the 8-900 series we actually put together. Rather, not that policies are overly exciting, but these seem to hold a special spot in being not that exciting. The 800 series has to do with buildings and sites, so just a lot of things like, well, about equal access, how do we dispense of equipment and things like that. And the 900 series is community and school district relations. So how do we distribute materials, what visitors do we allow into the buildings and all of that. So we lump them together, and just like we've always done previously, we bring them up for first reading, and we look for comments and try to address concerns and comments between the readings. And I'm bringing these forward. You can see them in the board packet. We don't usually read through each one, but basically there's two of them that are brand new, that 801 and 907 are brand new policies or forms. And then the next grouping is policies that we've had in the books. They're just a lot of statutory language changes and things like that that happen between times that we update them. And then there's one policy that we're making a procedure, because it's not a MSBA board recommended policy. And there's one that is not a required policy that we are not adopting, because we feel that the community does a good job, and we have a system for notifying our staff when, in that policy 906, the one about predatory offenders, that is already in city ordinance and state law. So it is not a required policy. We felt that it would kind of muck up the waters if we tacked onto that. So I'm recommending that we accept these as listed as a second reading.
Let's get it on the table by a motion. And we'll move to discussion. Motion to accept the 800, 900 policies as slightly amended from last version.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tony. Discussion. Question? Comment? There were only a few comments that I shared with John. I think a couple other people saw those as well. So some of them were editorial, if you will, comments or questions. I'm very comfortable with these. These are extremely blasé policies as they go. Yes, they were good reading. Any other comments? Is this?
We have one section.
Oh.
We jumped 600s because the 600 policies are the ones that are dealing with a lot of what we're doing with our secondary redesign. So as we're going through that, we're going to dive into those. I got a feeling that I'll bring the ones that are pretty standard and bring them forward, and then there'll be some that we'll bring in stages because they're about credit requirements and different things that we do. So as we're doing our strategic planning and our plan, what plan that we're writing, the master plan for the academies, as we start finalizing those items, we'll do that in conjunction with those and bring them forward. So that's the last piece.
Okay. Hearing no additional comments or questions, I will bring us to a vote. So this is for adopting the 800, 900 series policies with the slight modifications that we noted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We've got another chunk out of the way. Thank you, John. We'll move on to item 7.2, acceptance of Academy Industry Council membership. Brad?
Sure, thank you. We had one of our most recent steering committee meetings for our For Next Generation and Academies of Shakopee design. We asked folks to come up with the names of people from the Shakopee area that would make a significant contribution to the group that Nancy and I will be working with in bringing the best of the workforce together and the best of our teachers' articulation group together. And so these are the listings and the names of the folks by position that have agreed to serve on the specific academies. You can kind of start seeing things fall into place now. You start seeing how these academies start forming their separate identities and take themselves into places that are really specialist areas. And I'm really, really proud of the steering committee, Doc Johnson and John Caney lead that group, and I tell you, when you look at the list, it is just a wonderful list of people who not only regularly contribute, but there are names on this list that we haven't been able to be fortunate enough to really work hand in hand with. And so what a powerful, great group that are going to give advice then to Nancy and I as we work with our articulation team. So it's just going to be, I mean, this is going to be some really energy, high-powered stuff. I'm really excited to work with them. And as part of our process, I thought it only right that you would accept this group then as our Academies of Shakopee board-appointed industry council membership.
Questions for Rod?
Is this final complete, or will there be additions as we, I mean, obviously, people will choose to participate or not participate, but, like, it feels like our Arts and Communication Academy may be a big one, and yet we don't have as many partners with that. Is it?
Maybe I could frame it for you. Nancy and I will be meeting with this group in the next 4 weeks, approximately. Then there will be a volunteer group, a few folks to meet with us, to meet again to clarify if what the group said to the teachers was deep enough and had enough breadth. And then we're going to meet second semester after all that time, and we're going to bring a group back. What would happen is let's say that there's a missing piece, or the teachers group needed broadcast recording or things digital, whatever it might be. We'll find people then. We'll try and search out people that would be a good fit to be on here. So this is our initial group, and by all means, I would say it's going to have to be somewhat fluid, because there's going to be things that maybe pop for us that we don't even have in the immediate area that they might need. Is that fair to say, Nancy? Would you say
Yeah, and
it's...
actually Star from Ford said the optimal size is actually in that range of 5 to 10 to begin with, just because you're trying to get sort of those key leaders who can really help you focus on the overall design of the academy first, and then it grows from there as you try to get more people involved once we get into implementation with job shadows, internships, that kind of thing. So, you know, I think our goal with the steering committee was at least a minimum of 5. We obviously have a few academies that were well over 10, but you know, that's okay too. But kind of that was the optimal size that Star wanted, was kind of that 5 to 10.
Okay.
Thank you.
One thing I noticed right away, and man, I wish I could go back and do high school over, because every class I took felt like it was just a class. It had no connection to me whatsoever to my life post-high school. And if you just look at the position titles, take away everything else, it gives you a glimpse into the careers that can come out of these academies. And to me, I don't know, it speaks to me, and it's clear, and it's just connections everywhere. I don't know, I just think it's fantastic. So, thank you for all your work you're doing with us.
Well, the steering committee really is they're the ones that work to pull this together. I think they did a really good job going out there and kind of figuring out who they could tap and pulling that together, so.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, the committees serve as just name only. They're working. They're rolling up their sleeves and getting us people, which is why the list looks like this.
Right.
Any other comments?
No, it's just a very impressive list. I've got the good fortune to know several of these people, and some other people I'm looking forward to get to know through their service, but this is a fantastically qualified group of experts and partners.
All right, so let's move by formally accepting this group. I'll accept the motion to accept this as the Academies of Shakopee Industry Council membership list, knowing that it will be fluid in some respects, so it's not a hard and fast, not a changing thing.
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, Mary. Second, Matt. Any additional dialogue or questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes, and, you know, I eyeballed it, and it's 60-plus names. I mean, talk about community involvement. That's phenomenal. Phenomenal, so great job. All right, we'll move on to item 7.3, which is the Food Services Master Agreement. Mike and Scott, looks like.
This should be pretty brief.
Yep.
We have to have food.
What's that?
We have to have food.
Yeah.
Happy to say we have a good agreement with the food service, And one of the things I just would let you know is when Mike and I met with the food service, one of the things we did a very strong comparable against some of the other districts just to see where some of our food service we're at. And one of the things with this settlement is we put a little bit more on our bottom grades, those entry level food service employees, because we were having a very hard time finding them and keeping them. So most of it was very nice that the lead negotiators for the food service saw that and worked with us to help us recruit and keep food service workers. So overall, it's a 9.7% settlement over the 2 years. There was very few, if any, language. It was very quick negotiations this year.
Questions?
They did ratify it.
Yes, they did ratify it, and this also comes out of the food service.
Right.
Budget.
Mary?
What did we give the teachers? Total package?
Well, it's always hard to do the total package with these groups because our teachers start at a level that's so much higher with just steps and lanes and things that we cost in. So it's always a little bit misrepresentative. We did similar percentages on salary schedules.
Right, and in the insurance, what we do with the insurance too, in terms of the increases, we try to, if it's a 5% increase for insurance, we try to do the same. I do believe we actually we went a little higher with the food service on their insurance contribution, try to get it closer to some of our other groups.
Would it be fair to say it's ballparked somewhat?
Somewhat similar, yep.
Okay. Any additional questions? So we're looking to ratify the agreement that, we know that group is on board. I'll accept the motion to accept the food services master agreement.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Sean. Any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thanks, guys. And Scott, you're just gonna stay here. You knew that. That's why you stayed here. So we're gonna talk about a couple additional ads.
Correct.
Yep.
We were very conservative on our staffing this year, and we waited to the last minute in terms of seeing how some of our elementaries went in terms of the class size. And I'll tell you, it was very interesting watching Eagle Creek kindergarten. One time they're up, then the next day they're down, and 3 days later they're up. It was just amazing how up and down it was. Where Jackson's was, their fourth grade was holding steady, but at the last minute got a few enrollments that came in. And so what I'm asking for to get those class size in target in the range would be a 0.5 kindergarten for Eagle Creek and a full FTE for Jackson. We were gonna look at just a 0.5 at Jackson, but then all of a sudden they had a couple more enroll, and it was just like, even that 0.5 wouldn't have gotten it in range. We needed to go to the full. And now exactly both those sections of kindergarten at Eagle Creek is right at target, and so is Jackson, fourth grade.
Can I ask a question? Maybe I'm just clueless, but how does a 0.5 staff teacher reduce class size?
Well, that's a good question, because we pretty hard sometimes, like later in the year. Let's say if we had 10 kids move into one section of maybe second grade at Red Oak or something like that, very hard to add a full section. And specifically for Eagle Creek and Jackson, there really isn't any rooms available to add sections. So what you end up doing is you hire a teacher to help with reading and math and bring the core teachings down to a respectful level. So instead of having 24 kids in that reading, you might have 18 kids in that reading section, because you're creating another section of reading and math. So that's how you use the 0.5s. And then you have to remember, a lot of those students, they're going out for their specialists, so they travel out. So the core subjects where you really try to lower the size. It's not the best thing, but it works.
Well, when you have no physical space.
No
to do
physical
a class.
space, right.
Yeah, you have to.
You know, I think part of the reason that we're actually coming to the board like this, we've actually had to have these teachers in place before tonight And part of the reason I asked Scott to come here is that the community needs to know how we have chosen to operate. When you talked about being conservative, the conservativeness is, you could call it conservative or you could call it prudent. We didn't staff anything unless we knew that the kids were in the seats. And that's what happens, is that sometimes in the secondary level, you know, we through multitude of reasons that we're still always trying to figure out, you know, if you lose 10, 20, 30, 50 kids, that's tens of thousands of dollars that walk out that door. And so all of our classes now have hit class size targets. We're within range. We've had to go and, you know, we've done temporary classrooms like Sunpath in the past, where we use some of that cluster space, and we're doing it at Eagle Creek now. But again, I guess the point is it shouldn't be a surprise to us, knowing that we've done it in the past and we're doing it now. And throughout our referendum process, we also knew that the last year or so, that pressure point was going to bubble over the top one way or the other. So it's predictable that we would be in this spot. And fortunately, the philosophy of the board was, instead of either cutting teachers or bursting at the seams, we've chosen to, these numbers tonight that you're asking for actually put us above budget or out of budgets, what I think Reggie calls scope or budget creep. And so when it comes to class size and students, the spending is on the kids in the classroom, and I think that's part of the reason we're here tonight too.
And I know, Sean, to your question, we added a full-time teacher to the kindergarten. It wasn't a half section.
Oh, you said 0.5 kindergarten.
Yeah, so, well, Josie had 0.5 in funds, her building funds, to make it a full-time position.
Okay.
So we're only doing the 0.5 to make it a full-time teacher, because they had the funds. So I wanted to make sure you understood that. But we do 0.5s. If you recall, last year I came to the board and I think it was Sunpath, 5th grade, we added a 0.5.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden, a month into the school year, it creeped up.
Yeah, I have a question. This is maybe more for the public. For the parents at Eagle Creek and Jackson, many of whom I communicate with on a regular basis, they did express some frustration with how full the schools are, and some were very upset that we didn't change the boundaries, because there are discrepancies between a Red Oak and a, could you just maybe clarify why this was the solution rather than redrawing boundaries this year?
If I can, and Rod can jump in. Mike and I actually pulled a map, and when we were adding the kindergarten section, what we started to look at was how many families of those kindergartens might they fit in or be close to a possible Red Oak if we looked at some boundary issues. And Mike, I don't think there was five at best. So, and we started looking at other families, and because the boundaries are drawn from, coming out of downtown area.
Yep.
It didn't work as easy as we thought it was. So we had this whole map out, and we're looking at where all these families are in the kindergarten to see, okay, if we redrew the boundary and had them go over there and promise that when we do redraw the boundaries when the high school opens, and promise those families they can stay there, not get re-boundaried again. We did look at that, and we had this large map, and we're counting families and trying to figure out, can we make it work now? So that would have been an easy solution, but it wasn't an easiest solution.
Right. And knowing that 2 years from now, that is a process we're going through.
That's probably the key piece, is that it's one of the most contentious, one of the most difficult things we do, and one of the potentially most contentious things we do. Don't do that very lightly. So when we do it, we want to make sure we take the time to do it correctly, and so that we don't have to redo it, because once we set those, we want to set them we want to guarantee people that their children are going to be able to go there for a long period of time. So that's not an easy short-term solution, and we know we're going to have to open that up in the next
2 years.
Yeah, it's probably in another year that
Yeah.
you're planning for
Start,
that.
yeah, we'll start
So
planning
we
on
didn't wanna,
Right.
we don't wanna partially open that up. When we open it up, we need to look at a variety of things, so that's why.
And Sean, I would tell you too, as an executive council, we had this very discussion, looked at several alternatives, that being one, which was to shift. The numbers didn't support it, and then those dynamics come into play. And again, just as an executive council, we said, that's not the way to go, we support what you're recommending. So this is not taken lightly, it's not taken in any kind of superficial manner. But clearly, you shift boundaries, it's a big deal.
Right.
And we want to do it right, we want to do it as few times as possible.
Right.
If anything demonstrates, what do we say in the referendum all the time, the enrollment crunch, the phrase, that's it in those two schools. And it's unfortunately gonna be that way for this year and next year,
Yep.
but it's part and parcel of why we're doing what we're doing.
Right.
So there is a horizon out there, but it's gonna be a couple of tough years in terms of size, because we're a growing community. So we're doing the right things, but we're trying not to be short-sighted about our solutions for what the right long-term answer is.
Well said.
And then one thing I might add, is that's something we might look in next year facing that crisis, not boundary shifting, but maybe taking a busload of kindergartners over to another school that might have room. We've done that in the past, but we knew those enrollments were solid when you
Right.
could make those decisions, because Marion actually asked me that, because we've done it in the past, but these numbers came in that last couple of days.
Yeah.
Very fluid.
Yeah, and our welcome center sometimes was getting 15, 20 families
A day.
coming in a day. And you're always asking, okay, what building are they lined up to go to? And you're trying to calculate it out, but at the same time, we have to look at how many students are exiting the district that might be moving, going elsewhere. And sometimes because of our early start, those districts hadn't requested records from us yet. So it made it quite difficult, the challenge this year, really trying to forecast your enrollment into these sections.
Other comments or questions? I will use a little executive privilege here and speak on behalf of the board. I want to thank you, Scott, you, Mike, you, Rod, and the whole entire administration. The budgeting process is something that's extremely intensive, very complicated. There's a lot of forecasting and projections built in, and we don't take this lightly. You guys don't take this lightly, and we don't as a community. And education gets hit a lot of times for, prolific spending and it's just throwing money at things. It's never been the case in Shakopee. It hasn't been with this board, it hasn't been with prior boards. And we've always focused on the kids. And what you're seeing tonight, budget creep, if you want to call it, no, because we're going to approve it. It's no longer creep. It's an approved budget item. I'm assuming we're going to do that because it's the right thing to do, because we believe class sizes are important. So this is in keeping with a couple of schools that are feeling the pinch and doing the right thing for kids. So you guys being conservative in your forecasting is the right thing to do. And we said, come back to us when you need something. And we've always responded in the past, and we're responding again tonight. So thank you guys for doing that. And then we're able to do that for the community. All right, so with that, I'm gonna clarify one other thing. In the notes you sent us, just explanatory, Julie was adding another headcount. You haven't spoken to that. Is that something we need to take action on, this other nursing that we're kind of
It was required not to do? part of the agenda, it was a heads up to you guys, just to let you know.
So there's nothing we need to formally accept, we're just limiting it to these other
Yes.
teacher headcounts, okay. So the action, I'm gonna look for a motion to approve the teaching staff additions that have been discussed.
So moved.
Thank you, second?
Second.
Thank you, Tony. Any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes, thank you, Scott, and everyone else.
Great work, gentlemen, and your staffs.
All right, move to item 8.2, the much-awaited instructional rounds.
Thank you, Reggie. Thank you.
What's the word?
Pedagogy.
What that is.
So I'll make this real quick. One of the things I'm thankful for is the politics of trying to pass referendums and construction. Hopefully are behind us for a while, and we get to do some of the things Nancy and I and her team that I think our district most desperately needs, and that is these incremental steps we've talked about in the improvement of teaching, learning, and instruction, is working with our field generals, the principals as the instructional leaders, and working with our instructional coaches And the way I think I can use my time, and it's not quite 2/5 of my time, but it's getting there, is that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I say this because both for public knowledge of why is the superintendent in classrooms all the time, I'm going to be in there we've got rounds is what they're called. Every building will see myself and Annie. Annie and I will take the opportunity, you have a handout in here that looks like this. We met with the instructional coaches and the principals, and every Tuesday and Thursday we're coming to a different building with this in mind. We're going to take a look at their building goals, the district strategic directions, and then we're going to meet with the instructional leader, which is the principal, separately. We're going to meet with the instructional coach separately, and we're going to ask the kinds of things that you see on the back. Part of this is it's the targeted assistance. If there are areas that are weak, we come back to the board, I ask, we provide them what they need so that they can become what they want to be in the building. The other part is it helps me supervise and evaluate our instructional leaders. It's critical if we're saying that in our district that we want to be like those comparables that are 10% above. It's imperative that we have instructional leaders that actually know the instructional pieces of it and not just manage the buildings. The principals are really excited about that because there's been a lot of training with Nancy and her group on Steve Dunn and other kinds of methodologies that they want to be a part of. They just maybe haven't felt as comfortable. And so they're going to see Nancy, they're going to see Annie in their teaching, and then they get to do some of the coaching. They're going to see me teaching in there, and then they're going to laugh, and then they're going to see how to correct that. And then it's this teamwork or this team effort in making sure that school visits have an instructional purpose to them. And we're trying to become excellent. So we're continuing to look at what makes our schools excellent. The other piece of that, of course, too, is we've got some opportunities to, what I would say, take a look at some of the areas in our teaching staff that need improvement as well. We're only going to find that, though, not through the instructional rounds, but through the dialogue and the conversations. Instructional rounds are looking at our lab classrooms. These are the teachers who stepped up. These are the teachers who say, I don't mind swinging and missing a couple times if you give me permission and really try and hit a grand slam. So they're going to try and do some things that show these pockets of excellence. And then just like writing a master's paper or trying to get a new drug passed, like that, you're going to have to swing and miss, and then eventually you want to replicate it. So these lab classrooms are a wonderful opportunity to get the opportunity to replicate excellence. And then, frankly, some of the political stuff that happens with rumors and gossip in school, I hope that I can run interference for them. And the principals shouldn't have to deal with that, and certainly teachers shouldn't be bothered, nor should they get involved in the rumors and gossip of what's happening and what, So now there's a regular schedule of when the superintendent's going to be in their building, in the classroom, when I'm going to be teaching, when I'm going to be observing, when I'm going to be coaching. And I plan to bring guests with me, and the ICs and principals are aware of that. So I might bring Nancy with me one time. I might bring Ashley with me. I might bring one of you I mentioned to do rounds. And what it basically, in a nutshell, is Annie and I come over together and we're talking and we're looking at the data. We sit down with the principal for a half hour and going over questions and data. We sit with the IC for a half hour, instructions, data. Then we get into the lab classroom. There's 3 rounds of it. Eventually the instructional coach will teach and the principal will coach them, and it's using the kids and working with the kids, and then we finish up with a 30-minute reflective session, and it's what did we learn? What do we need to work on? What do we replicate, and so forth. So I thought it'd be important. We always talk about, especially when we evaluate communications too, we always want to see more and more and more of our people in the buildings. This is one example. When you aren't working on referendums or politics, you can actually do these kinds of things. So I look forward to it and thought that you might be interested in it. And I do give you an open invitation. If you want to come along, probably as we've done it a few times, it's probably enough of a shock to see a small group of people coming into their classrooms as it is, but I would open that up to you. So this was just a discussion item only, and if you have any questions, be happy to answer it. Questions?
Sounds fabulous.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
I think that, gonna guess Angela, Scott, and probably Matt for sure. You know, we can think through our corporate life, and there's times that you think about the CEO, which is what you are, and you think he or she is so removed and so distant, they don't understand what we're. This is being in the trenches, this is being in the buildings. I applaud this from your description of it, it sounds fantastic, and I look forward to hopefully being one who can observe this firsthand. So I think it sounds great.
Love to have you.
All right, we'll move on to item 8.3, which is, I guess, just a preview of the rather significant learning session. You schedule this when I'm gone, right? Here's on purpose.
We thought we'd get a lot of stuff done now.
Probably.
Nancy, you want to come out?
I'll
just
be here to ask
for a quick
questions,
preview?
that's the problem.
Are you saying there's a delta between
Yeah, that's right.
this agenda and a normal?
So,
I just want to be like Ray, Superintendent Thompson, Chairman Bowerman.
Very nice.
No, we have a lengthy board learning session. I think it reflects all the work that we have going on, but I'll kind of let Ryan.
yeah, and Nancy's here because really, this is heavy on instruction here, and it's dealing with our framework for the personalized learning project, which will be fabulous. Our professional development plan, Ray started talking about that. Well, that's one pocket of a lot of things we've got going as we move forward. We also have the late start proposal. We know that that's going to be part of something that's coming back to the board for a request for PD, professional development. And then Nancy has some preliminary recommendations that'll come out from the elementary core planning that'll really get us thinking about boundaries and decisions that have to go along with that. Of course, then, proposed high school graduation requirements. That's powerful work there that has to happen in order to formulate these academies of Shakopee, and it was a good process, and I think there'll be a lot of discussion, probably less with Reggie gone, but there'll be more discussion opportunities in the future.
I could scan.
No.
Careful. I better just be quiet then. But I did put other though. Now, you know, this is your agenda. It's heavy teaching and learning, but if there's anything else, like if you want to hear more from Dave or something like that, there's that opportunity here. And we can kind of shrink or expand our timelines, but I don't see the time on here, but we've already put this to, how long is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I want to say it's 2.5 hours right now.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, I'm still getting there.
Yeah.
We start at noon? We start at noon?
Yeah, it's about 2.
2?
Yeah.
So, it's up to you. If there's something that you're chomping at the bit here, you'd like to get on that learning session, we can plug it in, knowing that we have about 2 hours of these items.
I'll be honest, to your point about the whole being, working in the business instead of on it, I'm happy to have some of these conversations, because it does feel like we've been talking about bricks and mortar and digging fields and this and that, so it's actually kind of refreshing to remember that this is really this is what it's all about.
What we do in them, not where we do it?
Yeah, I mean, it is, really. What
It is.
happens in those buildings is more important than what they look like, but we have to have them built in order to do anything.
Any other comments on this?
I guess I missed that one, Reggie, the middle school's core planning. So you'll get the early childhood, elementary, and middle level updates.
And really, the high school graduation requirements are actually an offshoot of the master planning process. It's one of the pieces that's listed in one of the tactical team plans. And so you'll actually see some recent work we've been doing actually in our TIC in the areas of interest as well, and how those two things go hand in hand around programs of study and academies. So you're gonna get information on all 3 levels, really.
Okay, thank you for the heads up.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to our last item, which is a new business item. Mike, you want to come on up? And we're looking to approve tonight the preliminary levy.
Certified maximum.
Certified maximum, right? Sorry. 2016 payable 2017. So this is follow-up to a lot of information that Mike had sent to us. Highlight it for us.
The state just got the levy document out on Friday, and so I've been working on the levy document along with the, thank you, with Michael Holheisel, making sure I wasn't missing any parts or where we were going to be. So without further ado here, I think we'll just try and summarize the information that I sent out today. The overall levy change is about 2.5% right now. The stuff I sent you on Friday was almost 3%, and it's fairly fluid right now because we're still going through the details, going through the data, and trying to verify that everything that we've had in it before is there and everything that's supposed to be there is there. So still working through that process. The three things that changed the most were the long-term facilities maintenance. The per pupil amount went from $193 to $292. That's based on the age of your building is also in there, so our building age went from 24 to 25. Next year it'll go down because we're adding some space at the high school. The following year after that it'll go down even, probably moderate down a little bit further because all the space at the high school will be online. So that ratio, that percentage kind of affects how much. $292 is the total that you can get if you have a building that's 30, or your school district is 35 years old, or your buildings are 35 years old or more. You get the whole 292 because ours are 25. Our average is 25. We get about 75%. Capital projects referendum, that increases a little bit because of the value. Last year, we levied $2.5 million, was a little bit lower than the rest of the rate. The actual rate that was in the, we didn't need the full rate last year to make the $2.5 million based on the value. So that's gone up a little bit. And debt service goes up about $100,000 just with the schedule. And although we do have a debt service reduction because our fund balance is big enough, so we don't need to carry the whole amount. So we are reducing our debt service from what we're allowed with the fund balance reduction. The again, this is all preliminary, all not. Don't write it in stone yet. We're not there.
How come you have to do this process tonight?
How come you have to do?
Yeah.
What'll happen is we do the process, we set the maximum. When we set the maximum, the county will send out their proposed tax statements after the election in November. We'll have our truth and taxation hearing in December, and the board can make the final decision after that, after the truth and taxation meeting like we did last year. So you have to set it, then it gets sent out to property-specific parcels. This is what your proposed tax rate is going to be. There's 20 districts in the state that are going to have a referendum this fall, so theirs won't be exactly right, but they get the information.
So you're ballparking it here with the best available
information, and we'll go through it 2 more times just to make sure we have everything in it. And the first time I couldn't get in and put some information in because one of the systems was down, so now we're able to get that information in, and we'll see some changes continually up until March, or at the end of September when we have to turn this into the county. But the other thing the last point I wanted to make before we go on to the next, taxes projected to decrease for most homes with less than an 8% property value increase. So there's some interesting stuff out of the county website. There's only like 2.5% of the houses had over a 10% increase in Shakopee. Now I didn't look at all the, Jackson Township or any of the other surrounding townships, but Shakopee only 2.5 had more than a 10% increase. So a lot of homes should see either zero to reduction in their taxes based on what we have preliminarily laid out here today. Then, as you can see, the total levy increase is about $788,000 right now. And that might go up, it might go down. But it's right, as of today's calculation, it's 788. There's the breakdown. You can see the different general fund, community ed, and debt service, total 788 again. And then finally, those are the tax rates based on the value. So if your house is worth $100,000, you should see a $35 annual decrease to your property tax for the school portion of property tax. So $200,000 would see $87.20. So these are just the residential rates. We have commercial and ag property as well, but those are draft tax rates. As you can see, they say draft on there, so it's just what we think is going to happen. You know, a lot depends on the values that come in from the county, and they haven't been finalized, and there's a lot of moving parts yet. So what we would need then is just the proposed action to certify the maximum preliminary levy 2016, payable 2017. Any other questions?
So I will make a comment. Thank you, Mike, for the information you sent out in advance. It's always helpful to see the summary and then kind of crunch the numbers a little bit. I know it gets confusing to someone of my limited understanding of knowledge. But for the benefit of anybody who's watching, and maybe Tony, I think this is the first time you're doing this with us. We certify the maximum because once you do that, there's no going beyond it. That doesn't mean we have to, in December, when we actually pass the levy, go with the maximum. We go with whatever we determine is appropriate, but we set a ceiling tonight, and that gives us the maximum flexibility to do what we need to do. So tonight is simply certifying the maximum. We're not setting the levy. You can see what the projections are based upon what we've seen today, which is actually quite good news. That may hold up, that may change slightly up or down, but thanks, Mike, for all the effort to go into this. So tonight, the action and the motion I'm looking for is a motion to set the levy, certify the maximum levy, knowing that we will come back in December with a final approval. Thank you. Second?
Okay.
Mary, thank you. Any additional questions?
Just a comment. What I heard Mike say is things could go up or they could still go down, and that we're not communicating to the public that the school portion of their taxes are going down with certainty. We're not saying that. Based on your knowledge and your expertise.
As of today.
As of today's snapshot, that's what it would look like. But to cite you and say that they're going down when they come out in the fall or when the next round comes out with the taxation would not be an accurate thing to do at this time, correct?
And I will, yes, and an addendum, if I may, consistent with what we had to try to describe last time. It's dependent upon the value of your homes. More importantly than anything else, this is a projection based upon what we know today, and it said, if you saw the fine print, basically if there's an 8% or less increase in the value of your home, those projections hopefully will hold true. But if your home value increases significantly beyond that, that's not going to be the case, which is exactly what happened in some cases last year.
Yep.
All right. So with that, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mike.
One side note, with the enrollment stuff that you just completed, I did get a call from the company. We were using a little bit different enrollment projections, and they asked me how my kindergarten numbers came in, and I said we were off by 4. They said, well, that's not too bad, because some of our other school districts were off by 20, 24 positive, so they had a little more growth than we did. But we were fairly close, so that was a good tool for this year.
Good. Great to know. All right. We'll bring this to a close. Do we have any committee reports of substance? Mary.
This Southwest Metro, they authorized the St. Bonnie site So now we have sites in, Jordan, Chicopee, and, St. Bonifacius. So it's centralized.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you for your continued help and representation on that group. Anyone else? Okay. I'll do a quick around the horn here. I know it's getting a little late, but I'm gonna, just for the sake of seeing if there's anything else we need to add. Angela? Okay, Mary?
I got a phone call from a gentleman complimenting us
How about that?
on our prayers of Dave Orlowski and our, executive principal at the high school. So I was surprised that he gave me a compliment.
Did you call?
They call when they don't have reason to give positive news. I let, Rob and Reggie know that I received that phone call.
Very nice. Very nice. Tony? Nope. Sarah? No. Angela?
No, I just think that, remember the SAA Hall of Fame is coming up, so if you haven't received your invitation, let us know, but ads and stuff we can do on that.
Good. Nancy?
We're heavy into articulation. Believe it or not, you'll be looking at course proposals at the end of November already. And I guess just because I know a couple of you want to track this, we have upcoming meetings in about a month with the University of Minnesota around the Higher Learning Commission issues and working in conjunction with Dale Anderson and the union to really look at what it's going to take. The U has already expressed that they'll ask for that waiver until 2022. We're also in talks with Normandale, our other primary partner for the Minsky system. They're doing the same, but we're still working out the details of what it's going to take to make sure we can make sure all of our staff can meet those criteria. There will be portfolio and in some cases a need for online kinds of credits. So we'll be back probably, closer to winter with probably a plan to how to approach that over time. Especially as we want to expand credit options for all kids, we're going to need to have those pathways figured out for our teachers. So.
Thank you. Mike? Scott?
This week, we have a tentative agreement with our paraprofessionals that I'll probably be bringing to the board. The next business session, they've got to dig it to their group now, but we settled tentatively this week with our paraprofessionals.
Great. Okay.
I had a really good time at the football game on Friday. It was fun to see. I'm just telling you, it was festive, and whoever planned that thing, it was a great atmosphere. I tried to step back and just look at it objectively, and I stood in the back of that parking lot and looked at the lights, and the sun was going down, and the screen, the big screen was there, and the stadium, it was packed. It was great. And to cap it off, as I'm walking out to my car, I had the best entertainment possible when I passed Scott Swanson and his two kids. They were both dancing. They were so excited. Could not get Swanson to bust a move.
Why? It's the first time.
So the group that planned
I
that,
draw attention.
I would just say the group that was all involved in that, and I don't know everybody, I know the communications team was part of it, but did a really nice job with that.
I didn't know that there were so many people that still recognize Mr. Orlowski as a principal.
Yes, I heard the same, right?
A lot more sophomores, juniors, and seniors already stop by and saying hello to Mr. Orlowski.
They all want to show that they are taller.
Our team lost in the ticket sales too because of it. But I'm not bitter.
Brian?
I would echo that, everything that was put into last week with having a nice event for the opening of Vaughn. The other thing I would mention is kind of building off of earlier discussion with equity. I was working on a grant last week having to do with Wi-Fi for students that don't have it at home. And looking at our rates last year, about 2% of our one-to-one kids took a hotspot home. We're 35% free and reduced lunch. I don't know if we're under reporting that or not, it's something we're gonna look at. Kind of came out of that work, but we've been working with Equity a little bit too to help them be a part of that process of identifying the students. So that's been a good opportunity to have more of that group in the buildings and really entrenched to help identify the kids.
Nice part.
That's working out well.
That's really
Cool.
cool. That's really neat. Crystal?
I would just echo what Angel said, I'm working on homecoming and it's our next big thing, so.
John?
Good.
Matt?
Well, I would also echo the homecoming festivities as part of the Shakopee Alumni Association. That's always a fun day, the Hall of Fame and homecoming and the game. And this year's post-game event will be at the KC Hall. So it'll be a fun time and always good to see various community members through that whole day-long affair.
John?
I would like to say hats off or thank you or congratulations to Rod and our administration for putting together such a great Excellence with Equity team. In education, it's known, maybe based on facts or maybe not, that we tend to stagnate and doing things that haven't been done before or innovating, I think are what's gonna move our line, and I think this is one of the things that's gonna move our line, and I'm really, really proud of the work that you're doing and they're doing, and can't wait to see where it takes us.
Yeah.
What she said. Ditto.
Okay. Rod?
Working on dual credit opportunities with about 3 or 4 colleges and specialty areas that we've identified, and having some real cool conversations with the directors of admissions who want to partner with us and our kids to earn those dual credits. So we'll be bringing those, I'm sure, to you within the next 3-4 months.
Cool.
I will simply add my kudos to kind of what Dave said, but I'm going to take it in a different direction and thank all of the community participation, all the tents, the food tents, the food trucks, the fire department, the police department, Apple Ford, the postal service. I mean, I loved going to that fire truck. I was having a ball looking at that fire truck. That was really neat. So, I mean, that was an event. That was truly an event, and it was wonderful. So my kudos to all you guys. All right, just a couple of meetings coming up, just so everyone knows. We do have our learning session we talked about on the 26th. The Ford NGL steering committee meetings on October 4th. We have a single board meeting in October, that's the 10th. And we have 2 in November, 14th and 28th, and then 1 in December. And then we'll stop there with the new year. Okay? Anything else with that? I will look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.